Good morning, everyone, and happy Pi Day here. It's Pi Day Friday. Ryan Goodwin here with the podcast. Again, I'm not sure what the name is going to be right now, uh, but happy to be here on this late Friday morning, almost 11 o'clock. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the Red Sox and also a little bit about the Patriots as well. Some free agency. It should be fun to discuss that as we go to. I think we're going to start with the Red Sox. Last night, Sox fell. Well, they did win their game 3-2 yesterday afternoon, spring training over the New York Mets, but then also fell later on in the spring breakout game, which doesn't actually count towards anything um, as far as their Grapefruit League record, but they did lose that one 7-5 to the Tampa Bay Rays. But honestly, really, I mean, you couldn't have asked for much better last night from the Red Sox. Got home runs from the big three prospects, from Roman Anthony, from Marcel Meyer, and from Christian Campbell. Campbell went deep first, then Meyer, followed by Meyer. They actually went back to back, and then Roman Anthony homered later on in the evening. Even though the Red Sox eventually fell 7-5 in that one, but overall, a great game for the Red Sox. And I gotta say, I mean, I feel like this offseason compared to the last few off seasons, there's kind of almost a new life about this Red Sox team that we haven't felt in years, really. Um, and obviously, a lot's still going to need to go right. Unfortunately, we found out this week that Brian Bayo, as well as now Lucas Giolito, are both going to start the year on the injured list. And Giolito was just coming back was making his first spring training start this week and was just coming back from Tommy John last year. Now, this injury had nothing to do with the elbow. It had everything to do with it was his hamstring. So the Red Sox putting him on the injured list to begin the year. Now, I suppose the good news for now about those two is that they're both supposed to be back by mid-April at the latest. So not a super long wait. Season begins actually less than 2 weeks now. Season begins March 27th. Red Sox will be out in Arlington ready to take on the Rangers. So, uh, yeah, I mean, season's coming up fast. This year, the one of the earlier starts, I think, for baseball season in quite a while. I think it's March. I don't know. It's coming up pretty soon. We're gonna have that Tokyo series, the Cubs and Dodgers. I'm gonna look that up and see when that's coming up. That is the Tokyo series. That's this coming Tuesday. That'll be Tuesday, March 18th. And of course, being in Tokyo, it's gonna be at 6:10 a.m. here on the East Coast of the United States. So should be interesting. I guess if you want to get up really early to watch those games, might as well do that. Um, but yeah, as far as the Red Sox go, I think their rotation for the most part looks pretty good. For the first time in a while, you really have three guys. You have a guy that you for right now can say will go on opening day, and that's of course Garrett Crochet, who they got in the offseason. But then after him, you have a pretty solid, I'd say, number two guy. Obviously, worked through some injuries last year with the Dodgers. Finished the year out of the bullpen. That was Walker Bueller. But then after Walker Bueller, I mean, you really have, I guess, Hauk. Well, you don't have Bayo. It doesn't look like Crawford's going to start the year either. Uh, and of course, Pavetta's not back. Now, Nick Pavetta, I wasn't super mad that the Red Sox let him go. He obviously had, a decent few seasons here, but really all he was the whole time was just a 4 or 5 starter. And honestly, on a really good team, he'd be a 5 starter. The Red Sox had to move him up and kind of try to make him almost like better than he was, try to make him into like a top 3 starter, make him into a third starter. And that honestly, at times it felt like it could happen, but it never really did. Um, and the thing about Pavetta, I've always thought, is that he had some flashes. He had some flashes of really good stuff. I think last year a couple times he had a couple games I believe where he struck out 8 consecutive hitters. And so we've seen flashes like that from Nick Pivetta, especially in his Red Sox career, a lot more so than his Phillies career. His Phillies career was largely was not good. Um, and overall, I'd say the Red Sox still won that trade back in the COVID year, back in 2020. They sent, I think, Workman. They sent Brandon Workman and I think Keith Hembry to the Phillies for, um, sorry, for Nick Pivetta. And of course, you know, Workman ended up, I believe, coming back to the Red Sox anyway the next season. So it ended up kind of working out. But Workman and Hembry both with the Phillies didn't do anything. So, it ended up working out fine in that regard. And the Red Sox got a few seasons out of Pivetta. I mean, 21 really. I mean, he did start a few games in the COVID year, but really 21 through 24. 4 seasons they got out of Nick Pivetta as a starter, and at times out of the bullpen. I mean, especially in that playoff run back in 21, he was coming out of the bullpen. And honestly, I've always thought that Nick Pivetta is better out of the bullpen anyway, rather than being like a starter, like he was. Because again, we saw like flashes from him of really good stuff, and to me that translates better to the bullpen. When you're going over a shorter amount of time, maybe just an inning or two, or even three, if you're a long reliever, than say trying to go 5 innings at least every night, 5-6 innings, and trying to make that happen. But yeah, so the Red Sox, of course, as we talked about a little bit earlier, will be starting the season in less than 2 weeks now. They'll be going out to Arlington. And we already have the kind of the front four, front five set for the Red Sox lineup. Alex Cora talked about that this week. And now it's really just about solidifying the back end of the lineup. And I don't think it's a doubt right now that, Connor Wong is obviously your starting catcher. Personally, I'm not a big Connor Wong fan. I never have been. But what does it really matter? I mean, he's the best option right now that you have a catcher, especially after they traded Kyle Teal for Garrett Crochet. Um, and and then the battle for the secondary catcher, for the second catching position has been kind of interesting this spring, because the Red Sox have had a few different guys. They brought in, they traded for like it was kind of a minor deal. It what flew under the radar, but they traded for that Carlos Narvaez guy from the Yankees. Um, then they got I guess Sebi Zavala has started some games behind the dish this spring. I don't think Zavala's hit very well, so I and then they also have they have Mark Kolesvari, but he's going to be probably Worcester's catcher. I mean, um, and there was another catcher though the Red Sox had. Let's see if I can find that. There was definitely another catcher that the Red Sox had. So I have Narvaez. Oh, Blake Sable. Okay. Yeah, so they also signed Blake Sable, who was a free agent. The Giants let him go. Or I don't think he's a free agent officially, but the Giants cut him. Um, so, the interesting thing about Sable is I think Sable is more of an offensive catcher. I'd have to look at Narvaez's stats, but I feel like he's probably more on the defensive side. And Connor Wong, of course, will be your starting catcher on opening day, assuming he's stays healthy from here on out. Um, but Connor Wong, I'd still say it trends more offensively. He's more of an offensive catcher as well. Obviously, had a really good year last year. Look up what his numbers were back in 2024. Um, but Connor Wong, to his credit, did have a good year. Yeah, 280, 13 home runs, 52 RBI, 125 hits last year from Connor Wong. And you compare that to what he did in 2023, which I think was like 235. So not a great year offensively for him. A lot better last year. 13 home runs, a little bit of pop in there too. I did get to see him hit one actually last year in person, so that was kind of neat. But yeah, I it's kind of tough to think who. Well, let's see how Blake Sable's been doing this spring. I don't know his official numbers. I feel like Narvaez has had more starts than Sable has this spring. Oh well, those are his numbers from last year. Uh, okay, so Blake Sable right now, 286. Oh well, that's I don't know what his let's see what his spring training stats are. Blake Sable, 2025 spring training. He's had 14 at bats. Actually, not bad. Hitting 286, 1 RBI, 4 hits, 3 runs scored, 444 on base percentage, and 801 OPS. Now let's compare that to Narvaez. Okay, Carlos Narvaez. This spring hitting 200, couple RBIs. He's also had more bats. Well, 14. He's had 20 versus Sable's 14. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see what the Red Sox want to do. Narvaez is actually a little younger than I thought. He's 26. Let's see. Sable. I don't know how old. Oh, not Justin Slayton. Speaking of Justin Slayton, that's another guy. Um, I thought had a solid first year last year with the Red Sox, but it's going to be kind of interesting to see, what he does here in year two. Sable is 27, so Sable's been around a few years. If I had to give my honest opinion, I think, well, of course I'm going to give my honest opinion. I think Blake Sable will get the second catching position over Carlos Narvaez. I think, and part of it is because a couple of years ago, his rookie season with the Giants, he actually had a pretty good year. So he's shown some pop offensively, a little bit more than Narvaez has. Now, the thing is, with Narvaez, I think Narvaez is better defensively. So the Red Sox already have, as we talked about a little bit earlier, Red Sox already have Connor Wong, who's more of an offensive catcher. So sometimes you see teams that kind of want to balance things out. If they have one offensive catcher, they want to have a more defensive catcher as the backup. And I think Sable's not a great defensive catcher. So the thing is, if they do start Sable, or they do, he does make the major league roster as the second catcher on opening day. The thing is, you're gonna have two offensive catchers. So we'll see. I mean, I think there's still a chance. I feel like Narvaez has gotten more starts this spring than Sable has. So again, we'll see what happens. But speaking of Justin Slayton, I clicked on him accidentally, looking on the Red Sox website here and their stats for the spring. But actually, what he did last year was better than I remembered. So he was 6-2, 293, 44 appearances, 55 and a third innings, and a WHIP of just 1.01. So that was a good season for Slayton last year. It was a good rookie season. I think he kind of flew under the radar a little bit last year with the Red Sox. He was kind of more of a sixth, seventh inning guy. Occasionally they did put him in later in games, especially when they had injuries, when they needed it. But he kind of flew under the radar a little bit. And I want to kind of segue that into what I wanted to talk about anyway next. Well, I kind of got off topic. What I was really talking about there with the second half of the lineup before I started going on about Connor Wong was I feel like the only position right now, again, barring any, injuries, want to knock on wood there, hear me knock on wood, but barring any injuries, I feel like the Red Sox are pretty much set in terms of their starting lineup. With Devers coming out yesterday and saying that now he's kind of changed his tune. He is going to be willing to do whatever he wants, whatever the team wants, or whatever's best for the team. And I'm glad he came around to that because realistically, that's what he should have said in the first place. But so you're probably going to have Devers at DH most time, most nights. You're going to have Bregman at third. Bregman is better than Devers defensively at third base, which is obviously why the whole time he should have gotten the third base position. I'm not saying Devers will maybe never start at third base, but he's going to be like occasionally, maybe every once in a blue moon he'll start at third base. But you want Devers more and more DH, just because defensively he's gotten better over his career, but he's still not one of the better defenders in the league. Um, you much rather have Bregman there, who's solid at the position, and yeah, I mean, you just much rather have Bregman at third. Right now, you're gonna have, they did scratch Trevor's Story, but it sounds like for right now he should be okay. I think he might play again tomorrow, actually, as I record this Friday, so he might play Saturday tomorrow. Story, let's see. Yeah, so you'll have Story at short. Now you'll have Casas right now at first. I'm still a little bit iffy on Casas. I want to see Casas have a full season of, let's say, maybe 25 or more home runs, maybe hitting around 275 or higher. And yeah, I want to see a full season of that out of Tristan Casas, and then I'll maybe start considering whether or not, he's going to be the guy at first base for a while. Anyway, you have Casas at first. The real kind of interesting position right now, and it's been the interesting position for ever since Dustin Pedroia, his injuries at the end and then he retired, is second base still. Second base still kind of an interesting position for the Red Sox. I feel like going into camp last year, the Red Sox felt like Vaughn Grissom was the answer at second base after they traded Chris Sale for him. And I was one of them too. I thought, all right, well, Vaughn Grissom's young. He hasn't played a ton because of injuries, but he might be the second baseman, kind of the future and, going forward. Now, they do have Christian Campbell, obviously, as a prospect who's likely going to start the year in AAA. But the thing is, I don't think Campbell's had as good of a spring as people were thinking he might have had. Now, he did, again, go deep last night, and he's been hitting a little better lately. But I think some people thought that Campbell was actually going to be ready to take second base right out of camp and make the opening day roster. And I don't think that's going to happen. So you have Grissom, really two guys, Grissom and Hamilton, Vaughn Grissom, David Hamilton, who are going for the second base position. And, it's interesting because I think the Red Sox, I like Hamilton personally, but I think Hamilton is better as a utility guy. He's not better as an everyday second baseman. You don't want him as your everyday second baseman. He's good because, again, he brings value with his legs. He's got speed. He can steal bases, especially we saw him do it a bunch last year. Um, and he does flash some occasional, power too. He did hit, I think he's hit 3 homers this spring. Obviously, he's not a power guy, but he does supply that. He hit some home runs last year. So, you know, I do like David Hamilton there at second base. But also, I don't think Vaughn Grissom's had, I think Hamilton's had a better spring than Vaughn Grissom. Grissom, I think, is hitting like 230 right now. So he is hitting a little better than he did in the regular season last year at the Red Sox. But still, you want to see more, I think, out of Vaughn Grissom. And but yeah, for right now, I could see that obviously just being kind of a platoon between those two players for second base. And as of right now, that's really the only position I feel like in the Red Sox, it in the field right now for the Red Sox where things are kind of uncertain, because in the outfield it seems okay. I mean, Wilyer Abreu's been battling this stomach thing kind of throughout camp. He hasn't been able to play in a spring training game yet. But I feel like, from what Alex Cora has said, again, going off of what the manager, Cora, has brought up, I feel like Abreu probably will be ready for opening day. So you'll have Abreu still in right field. You'll have Cedar Rafael in center field. And you'll have Jarren Duran in left field to start the year as your outfielders. So the outfield, again, looks pretty good. It's pretty young. Abreu had a really good year last year. Rafael, I'd like to see him have a little bit better of a season at the plate this year, but obviously he did show what he can do last year with the bat, in the power department. When he can hit him, he hits him far. So, to say the least. But let's actually see what he did officially last year. There's also one other guy that I want to talk about though too, um, who it makes things kind of interesting. Actually, Rafaela. Oh, okay, that's his OBP 246, 15 home runs, 75 RBI. So overall, pretty good rookie year for Cedar Rafaela in 2024. Now, one guy that again I haven't mentioned yet, but is obviously worth mentioning in where he factors in all this because now that Devers has said that he'll move to DH probably most nights is Masataka Yoshida. You can't play Yoshida in the outfield, which is really the thing. They tried in 23 to have him play left field, but defensively he's just not very fast. He's not very good in the outfield. You want to have somebody obviously faster in left field, which you have Jaron Duran, then obviously you're going to play Duran in left field. It's interesting because there were talks this offseason that the Red Sox were maybe going to trade Yoshida to try to land uh like another infielder, to try to land a second baseman, and that never happened. Even to try to land another starting pitcher. Um I even saw a joke at one point during the offseason that like it was like the Yankees wanting to trade Marcus Stroman for Masataka Yoshida. And Yoshida, of course I was like, no, you don't want Marcus Stroman. You know, even as a 5 or 6. I mean, he had a good first half with the Yankees last year, but the second half was not good at all. And you see that we've seen that a lot from Stroman in his career. Like he had some really good years with the Blue Jays, especially in his prime, and then he had some really bad years too. And I mean, he never was able to find consistency. But yeah, you absolutely didn't want to do that trade. That was obviously a joke anyway. Um, but yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see where Yoshida factors in because again, you can't play him in the outfield. Maybe on the very rare occasion you do, if again, hopefully you're not in that position where you have to, but you don't want to have to play Yoshida in left field. And but also you can't really DH him now because Rafi obviously is going to have the DH spot. So like, what do they do with Yoshida? You have kind of a logjam there. You're not going to obviously send him down to AAA. So I guess off the bench. I mean, I don't really know. I mean, he has had a decent spring so far too, but again, the Red Sox just don't have room for him. So it's like, and I think he still has. I think he's in his third year. Yeah, he's in his third year of his deal. He's still. I think the Red Sox inked him to a 6-year deal, so he still has 3 years left after this. So I think the Red Sox are going to have to make a decision with Yoshida. They're probably going to have to trade Yoshida at some point. And he's 31. I mean, I don't really know what they're going to do. But, this spring though, ever since cuz he didn't start right away, but he did come back I think a few weeks ago now. He's made some starts and he's looked pretty good. I mean, 273. Last year he hit 280. 10 home runs. Although I think he did battle injury, I believe. His first year, I think he hit 15 home runs in 23. So he's had some good years. But yeah, I mean I don't know. The Red Sox are going to have to make a decision on Yoshida whether or not they want to trade him or not. And I honestly think they're going to have to because I just don't think, especially with Rafi moving to DH now, likely most nights, they're just not going to have room for Yoshida. And obviously, you're not going to send him down to AAA, because that makes no sense. And he's obviously good enough to not be in AAA. So, you know, I guess you're going to have him as a bench option. Um, but the Red Sox also have some other bench options too. I think Romy Gonzalez will probably make the team again as a utility guy. Um, and then obviously we always have Rob Refsnyder too, who's been there since 2022, who's been a good option off the bench. Now hopefully he's obviously an outfield option, but hopefully they don't have to play Refsnyder. As much as I feel like they had to last year. because of injuries and whatnot. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what the Red Sox do with Yoshida, and that's second base and Yoshida. Those are really the only two question marks kind of going into the season. But honestly, it's a good thing. It's like it's a good position to be in that the Red Sox have almost too many players rather than the last few seasons where it felt like they didn't have enough options. So, you'd rather be in that position certainly than the other way around where you don't really know what to do as far as, making some moves and obviously like what if somebody gets hurt because again, injuries are going to happen. So, if people get hurt like a lot of the pitchers did last season, you're having to rely on Cooper Criswell to make starts and some other guys to make spot starts as well. I guess on the pitching side too, the Red Sox, it feels like they do have some more options too this season than they did last year. Obviously, Richard Fitz last year, I believe, began in Worcester after they got him for Alex Verdugo. And I think at the end of the day, like the Red Sox are going to end up winning that trade because Verdugo obviously is not on the Yankees anymore. He's a free agent. Still nobody signed him. And he had overall, I'd say, a pretty solid first half with the Yankees last year. But the second half was, I think, dreadful. And by the end of it, Yankee fans hated him. I mean, they loved him at first when he was doing really well, but I just don't think he fit well in that clubhouse towards the end of things, especially with the beard policy, which obviously Yankees got rid of this offseason. But I just don't think I just don't think it worked. I don't think it worked, towards the end. I feel like we saw similar things with Verdugo in Boston as well. In the first few months of the year, it felt like Verdugo was hitting the ball out of the park. He was kind of tearing it up to start the year, and then as the year went on, he just fell off more and more. And so yeah, so I am kind of surprised though that no team has signed him because even though he's not like the best option, like I feel like there are teams that are in pretty bad spots right now that could use another outfielder, that could even use a starting outfielder, and he would be a decent fit for those kind of teams. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with him. But I think ultimately the Red Sox are going to end up winning that trade. Um, they obviously got Fitz, who was a good, pitching prospect in the Yankee system. And now Fitz could make the major league team. I mean, he ended up pitching towards the end of last season, looked really good. I think he had like a 174 ERA or something like that. I don't think he ever officially got a win though, because the Red Sox weren't scoring for him at that point in the year. But yeah, the last few starts, for him in like I think September of last year looked really good. So be interesting to see where fits in, like that pun. Um, and it'll also be interesting to see where a guy like Quinn Priester fits in. I mean, Quinn Priester has had a relatively good spring training as well as Fitz. And, Priester was the guy they obviously picked up in the trade deadline last year. They traded Nick York to the Pirates for him. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Again, I didn't mind that trade either because, Priester was kind of a reclamation project, but he's still fairly young. The Red Sox actually played him last year when he was in Pittsburgh back in like April, and they beat up on him in that game and they won. But, again, he's kind of another one of these low risk, potentially high reward reclamation projects that the Red Sox, the last few off seasons, really before this offseason, have been very high on. They've been very high on those kind of guys a lot, and that personally, I wasn't a big fan of it. But it could work out with Priester. I mean, we'll see. You know, I don't really think obviously they're going to have. Hopefully, if they're healthy, they're not going to have a spot for him in the starting rotation. But maybe as a long reliever, and yeah, I mean, and that again too, I could go on forever. But that again is the bullpen is kind of a spot where they're kind of things are a little bit like uncertain. I feel like that's kind of the biggest uncertainty going into the season this year with the Red Sox is the bullpen, because at least last year you had, Jansen's obviously at the end of his career, but you had, you could say Kenley Jansen's your closer, for the second straight year. You could say it in 23 too. And you could have said that obviously Chris Martin, when healthy, was your eighth inning guy, and obviously he performed that role pretty well for a couple of years. But both of those guys are now gone, so who's going to be your eighth inning guy? Who's going to be your closer? Obviously, they have Liam Hendricks. They signed Aroldis Chapman in the offseason too, but Chapman at this point in his career, is not a closer anymore. So that's where it's going to be interesting. Chapman will probably be like a sixth, seventh inning guy. You still have Greg Weissert. You still have there was another guy too. Well, yeah, you still have Justin Slayton. But again, I don't know. I don't know which one of those guys is going to be the closer. I don't know if Liam Hendricks will be good enough at this point in his career to be the closer. I mean, he's obviously made some starts this spring, some appearances, out of the bullpen this spring. And I think he's looked okay. I'd have to look at his numbers. Let's see, Liam Hendricks. I feel like his numbers haven't been, not great. 13.50 ERA, although he is 2-0 in the wins and loss column. But 4 innings and a 13.5 ERA, that's obviously not very good. So, and he's coming back. He's obviously older, been around a while. What other, I feel like there's other guys too that the Red Sox might have. Oh, well, Zach Kelly. Zach Kelly's probably, I don't think Zach Kelly's a closer. Some people have talked about maybe moving Zach Kelly to be the next closer, but I don't think he is, unfortunately. I don't think he's your answer there. And the guy I forgot about, Garrett Whitlock. Garrett Whitlock, I don't think is a closer either, but he could be like a seventh, eighth inning guy, which I think is going to be big. The Red Sox should have kept Garrett Whitlock in the bullpen. They never should have tried to make him a starter. It was never going to work. And I always said this going back because he kept getting hurt, and people were like, "Well, he was a starter back in before COVID in 2019 with the Double A, the Yankees Double A at the time, the Trenton Thunder." So, why is he not a starter? He's not a starter. He's not as effective as a starter. He was great out of the bullpen his rookie year in 2021. Why wouldn't they have just left him in the bullpen? Why would you try to ruin what's working? I didn't really get that. So finally, at long last, Garrett Whitlock is going back to the bullpen full time, and hopefully that will help. Hopefully that'll make something happen. Oh, Luis Guerrero, he's a guy that came up late last year, could be in that bullpen. Cooper Criswell, obviously, he's another one. So I mean, Criswell obviously ended up starting a lot of games last year due to some of the injuries they had, and overall did a decent job at it, especially in April. He was actually pretty good, but obviously you don't want to have him as a full-time starter. So if you can keep him in the bullpen, that'd be better. Although I think he was better as a starter than he was out of the bullpen. So we'll see. But Aroldis Chapman. Oh yeah, they also got Josh Winkowski. Justin Wilson is a guy they signed in the offseason. He was like, I think, their first free agent signing in the offseason. And it was, it kind of got groans, including for me, because it felt like the Red Sox were just going to keep doing what they've been doing the last few off seasons, where they sign these really low risk, potentially high reward guys, but they sign these guys for really cheap because they're just worried about money. And, that's even though they have a bunch of money and that they can go spend. But, they signed Justin Wilson from the Reds as a free agent. Justin Wilson's been around a while. He's been with like the Yankees. He's been with the Mets. He's been around a while, but he's another guy that could potentially be in that bullpen too. And you look at his numbers from spring, not very good. 12-27, 4 games, 0-1, and just 3 2/3 innings worked. So yeah, not the best numbers, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. In his debut, August 20th, 2012. So again, Wilson's a veteran. He's been around a long time. We'll see what happens there. All right. So talked quite a bit about the Red Sox going into, again, less than 2 weeks now till opening day, which will be in Arlington, Texas on March 27th, Thursday, March 27th. I actually don't know what time that game starts. Let's see. Opening day 2025. I got to go to schedule. Schedule. We'll probably still have some of the spring training games on here because we still have a couple weeks left of those. Oh, 4:05. Yeah, that makes sense. 4:05, Thursday the 27th against the Rangers on the road. All right. So, building up to that, we also have recently the start of the new league year in the NFL, and the Patriots, a lot of signings going on for the Patriots, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And also, the big news yesterday was that they released longtime center David Andrews, who, of course, 3-time Super Bowl champion with this team, and or excuse me, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He didn't win he was a rookie in 2015, so just missed the Seahawks Super Bowl. That was the next season after. But yeah, they just released David Andrews, and now, the Red Sox, the Red Sox, the Patriots, are going to have to find a new center. And also, there's rumors about Cooper Kupp and all that as well. But you look at some of the free agent signings that the Patriots have made, and they're all mostly on the defensive side of the ball. They got obviously Carlton Davis. They traded defensive tackle Devon Godchow to the Saints. They got Milton Williams, the defensive tackle from the Eagles. Really like that signing. The Eagles probably would have tried to re-sign him, but the thing is, with that huge contract, obviously, and that huge extension that they just gave to Saquon Barkley, they're not going to have enough. They weren't going to have enough money to be able to re-sign some of those guys on the defensive side of the ball. So that's the thing. Obviously Barkley's a great talent, but whenever you have a huge contract like that, you're basically saying, all right, well, we're going to have to let a few guys walk here and there, and that's what happened obviously with Milton Williams, who's still only 25 years old. Overall, I think really good pickup for the Patriots. And then Carlton Davis came over. He was a free agent from the Lions. Signed him to a 3-year deal. Obviously, spent a good amount of time with the Bucs when Brady was there. Good cornerback. So now obviously Jonathan Jones went elsewhere now. So you're gonna have obviously Christian Gonzalez, who will be in his 3rd season here in this coming year. And then you're going to have Carlton Davis on the other side at corner as well. So I think pretty good overall. And then, of course, Harold Landry, that was a big one for the Patriots. Linebacker was not a free agent, was released by the Titans. And, of course, Mike Vrabel drafted him when he was Titans head coach out of Boston College. So kind of some local ties there with BC football. And, yeah, Harold Landry, I think, did get released by the Titans for a reason, but also the Patriots. I think him working again with Mike Vrabel, now as head coach of the Patriots, I think is really going to be really going to be big. So I think the Patriots this year, it's still very early. Obviously, we have like 6 months until the season starts again in the fall of 25. But I think the Patriots this year are going to have, I would say they're probably a 7-8 win team. And I don't think that's going out on a limb to say. I think they're hopefully their worst days, the back-to-back seasons of 4-13 are over. Last year was obviously a dreadful year for the Patriots. 23 was also a dreadful year for the Patriots, but at least in 2023 they were close in a lot of those games. They lost obviously most of them that they were close in, but at least they were close in those games. You couldn't say that at all about the team last year. The defense was just horrid. The defense was not good at all. There was kind of a little bit of a mirage, I guess you could say, to start the season when they upset the Bengals out in Cincinnati. But I mean, the thing was the Bengals have never been a good team in the first month of the season. And it's been to their detriment too. It's the reason they missed the playoffs last year. They were really good down the stretch. Their defense was not good though, but Jamar Chase went off down the stretch, and they just the reason they didn't make the playoffs honestly was because the Patriots beat them in week 1. I mean, you could argue that was one of the reasons why Cincinnati did not make the playoffs last year. And to the same effect, the Patriots, if they hadn't beaten Cincinnati in week 1, they might have had, a top 3 pick, maybe even the number 1 pick. And of course, number 1 pick right now is with the Titans. And that's another thing too. Obviously talking about who are the Patriots going to draft in April, next at the end of next month. We still got it's over a month cuz the draft's always usually the last week of April. But, who are the Patriots going to draft? Are they going to, some people still think it's going to be Travis Hunter at number 4. I don't know if Travis Hunter will fall in the number 4. We'll see. Some people think, personally, I've really wanted them to get the guy out of Penn State. What's his name? I always forget his name. The edge rusher. Abdul Carter. Yeah, I've always wanted the Patriots to get Abdul Carter. But unfortunately, I don't think Abdul Carter is going to be there either. I think I could see Abdul Carter maybe going to the Browns, because who is it in front of the Patriots? Let's see. It's obviously the Titans are 1. NFL draft order. Okay, the Titans are. I thought the Raiders were in front of the Patriots for some reason, but they're not. They're 6. So it's the Titans, the Browns at 2, the Giants at 3, Patriots at 4. And Jags at 5. That's the top 5. And then the Raiders are 6th. Jets 7th. I guess Panthers 8th. Let's see who the top 10 is. Saints 9th and Bears 10th. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I feel like Abdul Carter could end up going 2 overall to Cleveland. They already have, obviously, they just re-signed Myles Garrett. We'll see, if they add like another defensive stud like Abdul Carter to that defense, it's going to be really tough. But the Browns also need help offensively too. But the problem for them is obviously this is not shaping up. Again, we don't know what it'll look like till years down the road. But this is not shaping up right now to be a good quarterback draft, and it's never been shaping up to be a good quarterback draft. There were talks about that all last season. After 2024, which could go down as being a pretty good quarterback draft. With obviously Drake May. Drake May. Who's the Washington quarterback? Jaden Daniels. Yeah, Jaden Daniels. And there were some others too. Bo Nix. Yeah, so 2024, we'll see how those guys all pan out down the road. Obviously Jaden Daniels had a tremendous rookie year. And then obviously ended up going to the NFC Championship in his rookie year. And then got smoked by Philly. But nonetheless, still an outstanding rookie year for Jaden Daniels. And but the thing is, Washington had a lot around him. And then Bo Nix too, led Denver to the playoffs. They actually didn't play terrible too in that wild card game against the Bills. But yeah, led Denver to the playoffs for the first time since Peyton Manning's last year in 2015, the year they won Super Bowl 50. So yeah, overall really good. It could end up being a really good rookie class, and obviously you have Caleb Williams too, who obviously the Bears didn't have a good year, but with a new head coach for Caleb Williams, we'll see what he'll end up doing in year 2. 2024, that quarterback class could end up being a really good quarterback class, and certainly one of the better ones we've seen in a while. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, with the Patriots side, I hope they can get Drake May some weapons, because if Drake May has some weapons, I think the Patriots offense is going to be in really good shape. So I think Drake May is going to be a good quarterback, down the stretch. So yeah, but yeah, that's some of the Patriots free agent signings for now. Again, there's still they're still linked in rumors about potentially signing Cooper Kupp, who was obviously recently let go by the LA Rams. Now the Rams do have, the reason they let him go is they did just get Devontae Adams from the Jets, and Devontae Adams' Jets tenure was not good at all. But I expect he'll certainly bounce back with the Rams, and obviously he's gonna have Puka Nacua on the other side. Puka Nacua is effectively the Rams' replacement for Cooper Kupp, and honestly, right now he looks like a pretty darn good replacement. I mean, right now he's definitely going to be the next Cooper Kupp as far as like his effectiveness as a receiver, and yeah, so we'll see what happens there in LA. Um but on the Patriots side, it's going to be interesting to see how they do with Mike Vrabel as well in year 1. Um like I said, my preseason, I'll say 8 wins right now. I was between 7 and 8. I'm gonna go 8. I'll say they're 8 and 9. Their schedule is easier, I believe, than last year, too. So yeah, I'd say they're gonna be right back to around 500. Which obviously is not great, but it's certainly a good stepping stone given that the last 2 years they've been basically cooked by mid October. As they've been like 1-5, 1-6, 2-6. I mean, you know, their season's basically been done by mid early to mid October. I mean, they've been buried. And people talk about, oh, well, there's still a path for them to carve out. But whenever you start 2-5, 2-6, it's really hard to it's really hard to come back from that. It's one thing to start 1-3 maybe, or because they've had. I mean, I still think back to Mac Jones' rookie year where they ended up making the playoffs. Still, they started that year 1-3, and then they went on that great run, and I think they were like 9-4 at one point. But it anything beyond 1-3 or 2-4, it's really hard to dig out of. Especially when you fall to 2-5, 2-6, like midway through the season, it's really hard to come back from that. But I do think, let's say the Patriots haven't released their schedule, of course, yet for like as far as the dates go and the order of who they're playing and when and that kind of stuff. That won't come out till I think it's usually right around the draft or it's even early May when they release the schedule. But we do obviously know who they're going to play next year as far as opponents go. So let's look that up real quick. Probably be the last thing we talk about here this morning and now almost afternoon, because I can't remember off the top of my head who they're going to play. All right, so yeah, so we obviously don't know the order that they're going to play these teams in. Obviously, they're going to have 2 against the Jets, 2 against the Bills, 2 against the Dolphins as usual. Obviously, division opponents, 1 at home, 1 on the road. But then they're going to have Tennessee away for the second straight year, which I think that's based off of like finishing. Yeah, because they're not playing the NFC. They're not playing the AFC South, are they? No, they're playing the AFC North next year, right? Yeah, Steelers. Oh yeah, they're playing the AFC North next year. So they're gonna have Bengals on the road again. But again, last year it wasn't because of. It was just because of like seeding or something like that. That's why they played the Bengals to start the year. It had nothing. They weren't playing the North last year. So anyway, to start again, Jets twice as usual, Bills twice as usual, Dolphins twice as usual. 1 home, 1 on the road. Then they got the Titans away for the second straight year. Bengals on the road for the second straight year. Bucks on the road. Okay, so they're playing the NFC South. Bucks on the road. Saints on the road. Then the Ravens on the road. Then they have the Falcons at home. The Panthers at home, of course, from the NFC South. And then the Browns at home, the Steelers at home, and the Raiders at home. And the Raiders will be, again, based off of just the playoff seeding and stuff like that. That's why they're playing Las Vegas. So, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. Again, a lot of those teams on that schedule, the Jets are in a weird spot. They're drafting at 7th This doesn't seem to be a very good quarterback draft, but again, you never know. And obviously, Aaron Rodgers is not going to be returning to them next year. And even when he was on them last year, that was a horrid year for them. So, the Jets are kind of, I feel like, back at square one as far as their offense goes. They obviously now don't have Devontae Adams either. So, the Bills are going to be good again, I'm sure. The Dolphins are always kind of a weird team, but I don't count on the Patriots winning in Miami. We'll see at home, though. Um, Tennessee, I think the Patriots will beat Tennessee next year. Uh, Tampa Bay will be tough. Baker Mayfield. The Bengals will be interesting again. I think Cincinnati will probably win this time, but we'll see. And then the Saints on the road. I think they should beat the Saints. Um, the Ravens on the road. Obviously, I don't expect them to win that one. The Falcons. I think they can beat the Falcons at home. They can certainly beat the Browns at home. They can beat the Panthers at home, certainly. Um, Even the Steelers. Steelers are kind of interesting. And then I think they can beat the Raiders at home. So those are a handful of games right there. Certainly well more than 4 wins that you could count on your hand right there that the Patriots could certainly win. So where you compare to last year, a lot of those games, they obviously began the year surprisingly 1-0 after upsetting Cincinnati on the road to begin the year. But then after that, things just went downhill. Um, and it was unfortunate too because even in week 2, they were winning that game, I think, against Seattle at certain points, and they were in that game the whole way, and they ended up falling just a little bit short in the end. And then they got smoked on the road against the Jets on like Thursday Night Football the next week, and then it was kind of that was it from there. That was the beginning of of the end of the 2024 season for the Patriots. So anyway, a lot to think about going forward, both for the Red Sox and the Patriots. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and now almost this afternoon here on Pi Day Friday. I'm Ryan Goodwin signing off, and we'll see you next week.